What do they call you? Wheels?
So, the chairman, aka original Hank McCoy, has returned from the Age of Revelation future with plenty of new knowledge, including how to create the X virus. But what does this mean for the X-Men's enemies, the shadowy council of 3K, and what have they been up to in the chairman's absence? Join me, Wheels, as I break down everything you need to know from X-Men issue 24, the final epilogue to the Age of Revelation event. Written by Jed MacKay with art once again by Tony Daniel, the story opens in 3K's base, where the remaining members of the council are discussing the chairman's absence. As a refresher, 3K has been quietly lurking in the shadows ever since the very first issue of this series, and have been behind the creation of several New Mutants. Initially a mystery, over time we have learnt the identity of every single member. The Zealot is Cassandra Nova, aka Charles Xavier's twin sister, who is responsible for the destruction of Genosha in the comics and is an incredibly powerful mutant with all of Charles's abilities and then some. The Doctor is Astra, a very minor 90s X-Men character. She literally only had 10 appearances before 2024, who was actually an original member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants but left the team before they first fought the X-Men in issue 4, and is most notable for being obsessed with Magneto to the point of creating Joseph, the clone of Magneto, and many more Josephs after that. The means is Wire, a very obscure Alpha Flight character, and notable human with augmented wires coming from his body, who is in charge of training 3K's very own version of the X-Men. And finally, the chairman, as we learnt at the end of the Age of Revelation event, is Hank McCoy, aka Beast, the original one, who was believed dead at the end of Krakoa after turning on X-Force and becoming truly evil. But more on him later. Cassandra explains to Astra and Wire that without the chairman, there is now a leadership vacuum that needs to be filled, and so they should move forward with their plan. We then cut to sometime earlier, in Astra's quarters, where she is discussing the chairman's disappearance with her Joseph. She believes that Cassandra will make a move to become the new leader, and, well, seeing as Nova is quite insane, Astra requests Joseph to destroy their adversary when the time is right, in a scene that is so oddly sexual and familial at the same time, but that just captures perfectly the weirdness of Astra and her obsession with Magneto. Also, it's a reoccurring beat throughout the issue that this version of Joseph, who is not the original one, is adamant on being referred to as Magneto, believing himself to be better than the actual Magneto, seeing as he is currently very weak. Meanwhile, in Cassandra Nova's quarters, the Mummadrag is having tea with her own prodigy, Myriad. Now, you might be a bit confused at who this is. I certainly was at first, but this is actually Robin Cobb, a mutant who was absorbed by her sister Piper in the womb, and so existed without her own body until she inhabited a dead Accounti whale and fought Magneto in X-Men issues 14 to 18. Under Cassandra's sway, she's finally been able to give herself her own form. And low-key, she's coming for Pixie's gig, so Megan, watch out. Nova discusses the threat of Astra with Robin, who fears what she would do with unfettered access to cloning Magneto over and over. The infamous Genocidaire is the most powerful mutant at 3K. However, she is conscious that Joseph owns a Magneto helmet that blocks telepathy, so he will be an issue. 3K's X-Men also pose a problem, as without the chairman's presence, their loyalties revert to their trainer, aka Wire, and who knows what he wants. With that, we see the Alpha Flight villain address the X-Men in what I assume is their very own knockoff Danger Room. He explains that Cassandra and Astra will inevitably clash, but that they actually have the power to decide who wins the fight in the end. Now, a quick reminder for you all that these X-Men were originally former Orcus agents that were forcibly transformed into mutants by 3K, and they also debuted way back in issue 1 of this series. The team consists of Constellation, Galatea, Juice, Psychovore, Time Bomb, and Schwarzschild, who in the Age of Revelation actually defected to the real X-Men and learnt how to use his black hole manipulation to time travel. Back to the meeting room in the present, Cassandra openly declares that she will be taking on the role of chairwoman. Astra obviously disagrees and inquires about Wire's opinion, who surprisingly doesn't want to take control. He just wants a more interesting future. And the 3K X-Men are on the same page. They just want to see who wants it more. And with that, Astra and Cassandra fight. Well, Joseph and Cassandra. He pulls apart the table and throws it at Xavier's twin, while she blocks Magneto's clone with her own telekinesis. Now she is able to do this, but her telekinesis, which is not her strong suit, is little match for Joseph's Omega level magnetic abilities and won't be able to withstand much more. However, Myriad comes to her rescue, sneaking up on Joseph and removing his helmet, meaning that he can easily be rendered unconscious telepathically. Without her creation to fight her battles, Astra takes matters into her own hands and teleports next to Cassandra, ready to kill her. However, the fisticuffs are cut short when the chairman makes his grand entrance, calling the Great Table of 3K to order in a brand new white and furry body. Essentially, his look in the Age of Revelation future. Shortly, 3K and their X-Men gather together outside atop their secret base. Everyone is surprised to see the chairman's new makeover. If you remember, he previously had this very skinny synthetic body that felt very much like a twisted version of Professor X's Krakoa design. Beast explains that he had originally put himself into a synthetic body to focus on his intellect and logic, and to not be distracted by a human body and everything that came with it. However, after spending time in the future in his clone's body, he was reminded of how important it is to be organic, which is totally just science speak for he was horny and he was attracted to Animalia, and he definitely just wanted to feel that again. The chairman then retells the story of the Age of Revelation, how Doug Ramsey, aka Revelation, created the X-Virus, a mutagenic disease that transformed humans into mutants and linked all biological matter together to create a mutant land. And more importantly, that 3K were blamed for this virus initially, and so were defeated in the future, meaning that the X-Men ultimately won. That's just a very brief overview of the Age of Revelation. If you want to know more about that specifically, then you should go check out my Age of Revelation videos, and there are plenty of them. Now that Hank has this knowledge of the future, he views this opportunity as a rebirth, a second chance for them all. And what better symbolism for that than a new body? Schwarzschild asks whether they can change the future and ensure 3K's victory. And while the chairman agrees, Schwarzschild won't be alive to see it. As I mentioned previously, in the future, Schwarzschild defected and joined the actual X-Men under the tutelage of Zorn. Knowing that he might not be loyal in the future, the chairman orders the rest of the X-Men to kill Schwarzschild. And before he can reclaim his loyalty, he's beaten to a pulp by his former teammates. Hank McCoy reveals he has the data on how to create the X-Virus, an actual reliable method of creating more mutants that will help reach their ultimate goal of mutants controlling the Earth by the year 3000. And the rest of the council couldn't be happier, as Schwarzschild is thrown from the base, which is floating high up in the clouds to his death. So maybe my theory was wrong. But then again, who in X-Men ever stays dead? So, I thought X-Men issue 24 was a big step up from the previous issue. Yes, the plot doesn't really move at all, but the depth we received about the villains was so interesting and much needed. I love getting insight into Astra, Cassandra and Wire, and seeing how they all kind of can't stand each other and constantly clash and backstab each other. It felt very reminiscent to the messy disagreements of the Quiet Council in a positive way. Plus, I do think it is a really good choice to continue this story of the original Beast and push him firmly over to the villain side. It's a real, thorough and realised art from the 80s till now. Additionally, the art from Tony Daniel was much sleeker, and the colours from first Cifuentes were so much more vibrant. The oranges, the blues, it was just a way more visually interesting issue, along with the more interesting story. So with all of that in mind, I have to give X-Men issue 24 a rating of 8.5. And that is my breakdown and review of X-Men issue 24. But what did you think about the issue? Did you like it? Did you not like it? And who was your favourite / most interesting member of 3K? Let me know down below in the comments. I'll see you all in the next video.